Is big data dead? Will your cloud bill grow if you decouple your system? And how to make distributed resets? Read about all of that in the Architecture Weekly number 56. And today's highlight begins with the article by Gregor Hope, titled "Will My Cloud Bill Go Up with Looser Coupling?" And coupling is considered a bad thing, so architects want to avoid it at all cost. What about the cost of infrastructure? Gregor picks up an example of a Lambda function writing data to DynamoDB and sending an event to Event Bridge to see if moving the event handling to DynamoDB instead of Lambda itself will grow the cloud bill for this particular setup. But the main point of the whole article is in its end. Whatever the infrastructure increase will be, you will probably save a couple of orders of magnitude more just by the developer efficiency. Go to the through article in the Architect Elevators blog. Okay, the second one is big data dead. Big data was on a hype for all over a decade, and the reason for that is that everybody was expecting the growth of data and the growth of the number of companies that will use a massive amount of data. But it turns out that really huge amounts are only handled by a handful of companies. So and even for them, the workloads are much less than the total amount of data. So basically that means that the data they need to process on a daily basis is not that big at all. So what does that mean for you? Find out in the article in the blog of MotherDoc. Okay, and the last highlight for today is the distributed reset. So last time we shared a visualization of a Raft consensus protocol, but Raft is a relatively recent development, and the problems of distributed systems are much older. For example, we had a problem of distributed reset, when you need to propagate the message to all the nodes that they need to set some value to a default one. And the original paper was written in 1994, but this week JC Davis wrote a review for it. So the basic idea is really close to the Dijkstra algorithm of searching a path, but here we need to go over all the nodes. Okay, and it's time for a follow-up section, and I'm starting it with an article in Martin Fowler's blog about the evolution of a React application. React is typically perceived as a framework for front-end application, but it's rather a library. That means that you still need to think about an application architecture. And in this post in the Martin Fowler's blog, you will see how you can evolve your front-end application from a really single-page component to a sophisticated application with a business layer, with interacting with the third parties, handling multiple components, handling states, etc. So grab a read. Okay, the next one is how the Istio became the critical infrastructure for cloud native apps. We spoke about service meshes in previous articles, and this time I would like to share an article about the history of evolution from plain Kubernetes system to those cloud natives using service meshes and the place of Istio there. So this particular article will cover the evolution of proxies from locally configurable to cloud native solutions at scale and provide the comparison tables and all that stuff. So grab a read. Okay, next one is a DevOps Roadmap. So right now it's impossible to imagine at least somewhat complex system without the proper DevOps setup and related practice. So you might end up in the situation where you need to hire an SRE or grow one in your company. So the roadmap I found on the internet does a good job depicting all the areas of expertise that this particular person should know and what you should be aware of as well. So it includes different things, starting with Git and covering the programming languages to cloud, CI/CD, monitoring, observability, and all this stuff. So grab an awesome repository. Okay, next one is the guide to projections and read models in event-driven architecture. So with event sourcing, you typically have a fixation of facts or event happened in the system. However, we frequently need not the events themselves, but understanding what the current state of an object is right now. The projections can help to build up this state from the recorded events. And Oskar Dudic shares the explanations of what exactly projections are and how to use them in his event-driven architecture blog. Okay, can't leave you without some hardcore stuff. And this time it's about Postgres write-ahead logs. WAL files are used for recovery and replication not only in Postgres but in other relational databases. But if you need to dig deep into some issue that happened with your PostgreSQL installation, you might find useful understanding of the WAL format, file naming conventions, log sequence numbers, and segment positions, and all these deep details. So this is why I'm sharing an article by Crunchy Data with you. Okay, the last one is the reference architecture and implementation for deployment pipelines, because last week AWS shared this reference architecture. If you ever needed to build a deployment pipeline, especially in the cloud, you know that there are many details there, like how you grab the source code, how you execute the jobs, how you deploy the result, etc., etc. So with this publication of the reference architecture, InfoQ blog included an article that covers that publication. So find out how to build a pipeline in AWS using their tools and services and how to follow the best practices. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to subscribe down below to the channel in order not to miss new videos on it. I would also appreciate your support that you can make at Patreon or Boosty, and that will really help to run the channel. Patrons and Boosty subscribers get the early access to all the content that I'm making, and you will also get your name in this list of supporters, and you will also be able to join the architecture community where we discuss what's happening in the industry and solving some architectural puzzles. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.